Stewart Copeland, can you tell us what the audience can expect at the two concerts on Thursday and Friday?
Well, the main thing that they're expecting to see me bang on my drums, and there's plenty of that. But the main surprise for them will be this movie. And the movie is enormous. It was made in 1925, silent, black and white. And most people think of that kind of film like Charlie Chaplin, old-fashioned, with a shaky image. It's not like that at all. It's very detailed. It's a magnificent, huge production, a masterpiece of the silent film era. And so there's that playing on a giant screen. And in the unbelievable Roman amphitheater, the atmosphere of that, combined with the chariots and the pirate battle and everything else on the screen, and an amazing orchestra. You here in Basel have a really great orchestra. I don't know if you even know that, but I've discovered that here since in these rehearsals, very quick and really on it. So you will see a magnificent orchestra, a giant film, and your humble servant aggressing upon inanimate objects.
This is the first time that you perform in an original Roman theater, this piece?
This piece, yeah. In Italy, where I go most summers to play concerts, they have Roman amphitheaters everywhere. But here in this part of Europe, certainly, and it's particularly appropriate for this show. I've never done Ben-Hur in an amphitheater. It's perfect.
Why do you chose Ben-Hur? Is this a theme what you like, or is it the movie you told me?
I think it feels more like Ben-Hur chose me. It was an incoming phone call. A wild German impresario decided that he wanted to put Ben-Hur, the book, on the stage, live, in the arenas. And with the horses, with the ships, the sea battle, everything, the whole thing there, live. And he hired me to be the composer on that. The show opened at the O2 Arena, and it ran its course and did its thing. And years later, the music that I wrote for it, I wanted to do concerts. And I was just going to play concerts, and I was building a concert. And then my manager said, hey, why don't you look at this old movie? And then I looked at the old movie, and then I drank the Kool-Aid, and just the obsession with this old film. And it was a long voyage, because the only version that exists that you can see was in the 60s. They took the original print, and they shot it to video, telecine to video, and now it's on a DVD, and if you ever see the film, that's what's available, and it's not a beautiful rendering of the film. So when I was cutting the music to that, to go to Warner Bros. And get the permission from them to use the film, they gave me the original 80-year-old celluloid. So I could go in, and we telecined it with modern technology to get everything that's on the celluloid, on the original film, into the computer. And having done that, then to clean up the contrast, the dust and scratches, the shakiness. The original film made 80 years ago runs at 20 frames a second. There are no machines that run at 20 frames a second. 24 is the closest you can get. So every 4 frames, we'd have to double a frame, And these weird techniques, I forget whether it was 4 frames or 6 frames or whatever, to make, we couldn't just speed it up because then the action's wrong. So we had to do all these different techniques for different scenes, and cleaning it up was the curation of the film. It was a big voyage. Then there's the orchestral score, which is another mountain to climb. But having climbed all those mountains, here we are in Basel, ready to play the show. It'll take 90 minutes, and it took me 2 or 3 years to build this show. We're going to rock through it in 90 minutes.
I'm looking forward. In the film, in the movie, there are big dramatic gestures with the battle of the ships,
yes,
and with the car race. Do you like it also as musicians, the big gesture?
Well, the most important gesture of all is that it is a silent film, which means there's no conversation, no dialogue. I don't have to watch out so you can understand what they're saying. Nobody's saying anything. It's silent. So all the audio spectrum is mine, and I can fill it all up. But in between the big battle scenes, the set pieces. There's actually several battle scenes, but there's also the plot and the characters and the sentiment, and there's beautiful stuff as well. A lot of religion. It's a very religious book. The original title of the book was Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, and the original book is a novelization of the New Testament Bible, and it's basically the story of Jesus Christ, and through the eyes of Ben-Hur, and their lives are parallel. In the book, that's the religious aspect is much, much more important than the Charlton Heston film. The 1925 film, my one, has much more of that religious aspect, which is actually I'm not particularly religious myself, but it's very spiritual. So it's a very fundamentally spiritual film with a lot of sea battles and chariot racing. That's how I like my spirituality.
As drummer of the Police, you played together with two other musicians. Now you will have about 60 or 70 musicians around you. What is the biggest difference between?
Well, this may surprise you, but to play with those 60 guys, I have to play much more quietly than when I'm playing with those other two guys. That makes no sense, right? But here's why. My instrument is designed to play with amplifiers, amplified guitars. And a box that big is so much louder than an orchestra, because an orchestra is combined. If they're all 60 guys are playing fortissimo, okay, that's pretty loud. But most of the time with an orchestra, you use these beautiful subtle elements, which is just one oboe, gently with just the first 4 violins, not all 20 of them, and to get all these textures out of an orchestra, the dynamic range is much wider than rock band. So to play with an orchestra, I have to be able to play my drums designed to fill an arena or a stadium to accompany a flute, one nice flute lady playing her little flute in my drum, and I have to be very quietly because I sort of like what she's doing on that flute, and I would like to be able to hear that. So when I'm playing with 3 rock musicians with amplifiers, it's a nuclear arms race with the other 2 guys. I mean, the volume is something. So one thing I really like about the orchestra is that it's much more subtle, and because of that subtlety, it can be much more powerful.
Did you knew this when you composed the art?
Well, the composition part is another side story of my life that the Police took up 8 years. And for 8 years, I was a big rock star. And I'm 64 years old now, so that 8 years out of 64 years is actually very small, but important, very important little slot there. Okay, but only 8 years. So for the rest of that time, 20 years, I was a professional film composer. You pay me money, I write you music. Flinty-eyed, all business, like a hired gun. And
you worked like a workaholic.
Yes, but I have a family to feed, and I had my police royalties, but I ignored them. I don't, I need to work today now because that's the way I was brought up. I work. And so the good thing is that being a professional hired to go there, not where as an artist would, I like this and I want to go as an artist, but as a professional you have to go wherever the job takes you. And so that's where I learned by force. Francis Coppola forced me to learn how to use an orchestra. My first film score was a film called Rumblefish for Francis Coppola, and I played all the music myself, and it was all my kind of thing. And he says, I want strings, and so I had to figure out orchestra, and I discovered that the amazing cool thing about orchestra is that if you do your homework and you put all the music on the page, not just the da 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 da, the accents, the joins, all the things, the articulation, they will play it exactly what you had in your mind. They're going to play it just like that. In a rock band, it's a negotiation. You make a suggestion to the guitarist, and he will put his thing on it, and it will be his part, and it's a collaboration. That's very exciting. But if you're a composer, to be able to put the music on the page and have them play it, this is something that I was forced to learn as a professional. And so that's where the orchestra came in. As a film composer, I had to learn how to use orchestra, and I discovered, wow, that's really pretty. I don't do that anymore, by the way. I have not taken a film composing job in 10 years or something. It's art now.
It's art now, you said. Your former co-musician Sting made a tour with Philharmonic Orchestra. You're writing music for a Philharmonic Orchestra.
Well, there's a big difference. He hires the orchestra.
Okay.
The orchestra hires me.
But is this the
It's a very different relationship.
Okay, for you. Is this the way for a rock musician to get a place on the high podium of music history, side by side with Beethoven and Mozart?
A couple, the first couple of concerts where I see my name on a poster with Mendelssohn, Brahms, whoever, Strauss even. Sometimes they put me on with, because I have other concerti. This is with a film and an orchestra, but I have other concerti that I play with drums and orchestra, which is just like a half-hour piece for me and orchestra, and and I played this show with various orchestras. The first time I saw my name on the same poster as Berlioz or Mendelssohn or the various people that they put me on with, that's kind of that makes me feel like a real musician, That last 10 minutes, that's such a small part of it. Yes, that is kind of a little zing, and that's another ice cube to the to your cocktail, I guess, but really it's an amazing instrument because the orchestra fundamentally is one thing. It's 60 guys, but their whole mission in life, all of those 60 individuals are trained, and their vocation is to be one thing in that orchestra, and to the thing, the oboe line, which is doubled way over there on the other side of the stage with the horns and the way they all fit together, they all want to be one thing. And so the vocabulary of this one instrument is very wide. It can be huge and aggressive. It can be gentle and poignant and break your heart with sympathy, or it can be mysterious, or it can be crazy, or it has the biggest vocabulary of any instrument. And that's why we work with orchestras, because they're really wide. I think it's just a new development. You have to grow, and pretty soon. I still enjoy playing guitar and drums, by the way, and bass. My favorite instrument is the bass. That's just fun. It's not, there's no high technique, or it's just fun. And that's still fun. But just intellectually you grow and you want to do things that are more complex.
In the German language there is a difference between U and E music, the serious music, the classical music, and entertainment music is rock music. Do you think this difference makes sense?
I'm a secret agent, and I'm sneaking in here as a punk rocker. I've got them all convinced that I'm a classical musician. I think some of them may suspect otherwise, but the only way I get to play with the orchestra is if I speak classical, and I know the language of the classical world, and I know what they want, and they the office in the front, they want to bring in young blood, new composers, and so that's good for me. But they call it, but I'm not classical. I have no intention of writing Brahms or the new Wagner. I got my own thing going on. I want to burn down the house. I want to do the same thing with 60 guys that I used to do with 3 guys. There's no reason at all why 60 musicians cannot burn down the building, and that is my intention. And so I pretend to be this classical guy so that I can get in the door. And but really, I want to rock the house.
You will rock the house. It's my intention too. I heard some pieces of your composition, and I thought it's perhaps a mix between Stravinsky and progressive rock.
Good. Thank you. I was raised on Stravinsky. I'm busted. Okay, you got me. But yes.
You have a drum set. What is not a small an orchestra. In an orchestra, do you need all the other musicians, or why is the drum set so big?
Why is the drum set so big?
Chunk of drums.
Okay, I can do it on a very small drum set. I learned this one day. George Martin, the Beatles producer, was doing a show at the Hollywood Bowl with the orchestra, and he asked me to play drums for all the Beatles songs, the orchestral things. So there I was, for a night I was Ringo Starr. And I thought, if I'm going to do Ringo Starr's drum parts, I'm going to do the Ringo Starr drum set. Boom, boom. That's it. 2 cymbals, 2 toms. And guess what? It was really a lot of fun and really easy to play without all these drums in the way. You know, it was great. But building a drum set is sort of like being a car freak. You know, and you want to put an extra exhaust pipe over here just because it looks cool. And half the shit I got on stage is just because it looks cool and I like to play with it and like to build. And I think, maybe if I put a little, it's always changing. And building the drum set and changing the drum set. Because also I'm basically a roadie, glorified roadie. I started out in this show business as a roadie for Wishbone Ash, carrying their gear. You show me a back line and a truck, and I will get that shit into that truck. I know how to do that. You know, okay, then somewhere along the line I became a fancy composer, but I'm fundamentally a roadie. In building the drum set and adjusting the cymbals and moving a little bit to the right, and maybe I can put another one. Then somebody invents some new kind of cymbal. I gotta have one of those, and I'll put it up there and I'll think of something to do with it, maybe, maybe not. So the reason it's so big is just because it's fun to build a big drum set.
There's one question about your former band, Police. You had a great reunion in 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
When can we expect the next reunion of the Police?
Well, how many times can hell freeze over?
No.
Okay, that was a mysterious question. You know, in English they have the expression, you know, when's that going to happen? Never. Not until hell freezes over. Well, hell froze over. The Eagles stole that title for their tour, you know, hell froze over. And so it did for us too. You know, we never thought we would ever play together again, and we get along okay, but our lives went separate directions. We all forgot about the Police. As a film composer, I had to not be a rock star. I had to be a professional. And the last thing they want to hire is a rock star, so I had to be Mr. Professional, and I forgot all about it. Like I say, it was only 8 years. And the same for Sting. He had a new band, a new brand, Sting. He had to get that name into people's minds. And so none of us had any thought until somebody suggested the reunion tour. Oh, sure, cool. And we get out there, and holy wow, this has been, you know. And it was very emotional. And although we've kind of grown apart as musicians, music fulfills a different function in our lives, and we don't necessarily fit together the way we did when we were young. The power of those songs, because they're 30 years old, and the songs have a baggage, they have meaning for people. Even if you're not a Police fan, those songs, you were doing something when that song was on the radio every day, and they have power. That kind of power you don't get with a new song. So we came together, we worked through the rehearsals, we figured out our differences, we made it work somehow. But the first night in front of an audience, that's what we're here for. Look, I mean, it was so emotional. We were overcome by the emotion of the power of those songs on those people who came to those shows. It was very, very powerful. But as musicians, it was a 2-year tour. By the end of the 2-year tour, I'm ready to get back to doing my thing, and so is the other 2 guys, because the Police doesn't belong to us anymore. You know, you form a group and you say, hey, let's go there, and then let's go there, and not the Police is a giant institution, and the Police songs are like a liturgy, you know, and it doesn't belong to us. And so we join up for 2 years, and then ready to get out and do our own thing again. And right now we're not thinking about it. And it seems to work best if we just don't think about it and don't think about it and don't think about it. Who knows?
Okay, I understand. You don't think about it. You already, last question, you already have a place in the Hall of Fame of rock musicians. Rolling Stone nominated you as one of the 10 greatest drummer of all time. What will you do to get the first place?
Well, for one thing, Mitch Mitchell isn't in that top 10 list, which means that top 10 list is meaningless. If Mitch Mitchell is not there, then it has no meaning. But it's very nice. That's not what we play music for. You know, if you're a soccer team or a tennis player, that's what it's all about. But for music, it's not relevant, and here's why. Every musician has their instinct, and the instinct of somebody like Elton John, what he wants to do, the music that he likes, is right there in the zeitgeist. Everyone, that's sort of the same as everybody else likes. But this other musician, like me, what I like to do, what makes my instincts tell me, is off-center. It's not the mainstream. It's slightly, not everybody likes that. You know, unfortunately for me, enough people like it so that I can make a living and have a career, but I'm not the sweet spot. And so for a musician to want to be number one would mean that, you know, the musician who's here, and that's the main thing, to be number one is here. That's the chart. Number one sound is here. But if your instincts are on this bandwidth here, to try and get there, it's soul destroying, and it doesn't work. And you can't compete with the guy who has that instinct, because that's his world. That's where he lives. And so I'm real happy where I am.
One more question. Tomorrow evening you will be on the podium as the composer, as the soloist, but not as conductor. Is it hard for you to trust in a musician you never played with him before?
Well, conductors generally, if they get the gig, are pretty clever musicians. And there were times back in film scoring days when I'd hire a conductor to do a film score, and the guy's like not very good, and you know, and I'd have to put up with it. But the guys who play this kind of concert have paid their dues. Now, Robert Emery is very young. He's 32 years old. He's exactly half of my age. But he has the instinct and he has the training, and he will only get better as the years go by. But he already, like Dudamel in Los Angeles, he has that power of youth, but you know, he's just a really smart kid and a great musician. And I've been fortunate that I haven't run into like a bad conductor yet outside of Hollywood, where you just hire guys because you're in a hurry, and the guy you want's already doing a job, so you get the other guy or whatever. But these guys who do this kind of show are generally pretty good.